right, welcome back, everybody. So yeah, please get settled back in, and we're gonna get started again with our second part of this training. And yes, so we're gonna be talking about, in the second part, limiting beliefs and gremlins. So yeah, a reminder, just to keep your cameras on as much as you can to engage with the content. And feel free to, make this as interactive as you possibly can. And also feel free to write questions in the chat as we go along that we'll answer after we have some time to practice. But yeah, let's get into this topic on limiting beliefs and gremlins. It's a very deep and exciting tool to utilize in coaching, and one of my favorite tools. So first of all, just to understand about limiting beliefs, and gremlins is kind of like a subset. It's a type of limiting belief, you could say. There's I don't know if you've ever seen this. There's a fish. There's three fish, and one fish says to the other two fish, "Morning, boys. How's the water?" And the other fish says, "What the heck is the water?" um, what does that mean? So limiting beliefs is kind of like the water to the fish, right? The fish is constantly surrounded by water. It's all they ever know. It's all they've known since birth, and it completely surrounds them and colors their entire world, right? If you put some red dye in the water from birth, probably the fish would just not really understand, oh, my life has always been red, this is the way it's always been. And not noticing that there is actually that they're surrounded by this water, right? And that's kind of like how our beliefs are. Our beliefs are always there with us. They're coloring every single action that we take, everything that we think, everything that we feel is all colored by the beliefs that we hold. So often, if we're working with clients and they are maybe feeling challenged to make some kind of progress, a lot of times it's not just about getting the right action, or putting it in the calendar, because we've all put things in our calendars, and we don't follow through many times, right? But a lot of times where we need to start to get to is to start to dig deeper into the underlying beliefs that are driving the behaviors of our clients. So beliefs like it might be, I'm not good enough, or might be a belief that this is too difficult for me, or I'm not good at this, or whatever it might be, right? And then a gremlin is, again, it's a certain type of belief, but it's in this realm of limiting beliefs, and that's what we're gonna be focusing on, gremlins. Which is basically, the gremlin is the voice in your head that keeps you from playing small. So we all have actually a voice in our head. I don't know if you knew that. If you're maybe noticing it right now, what is it saying to you in this very moment? But a lot of times, actually, that voice is it's like it's in the background. It's not necessarily something that we are always conscious of, or it's not always like there's that voice again telling me, I'm not good enough, or telling me I'll never make it. It's something that's often in the background, but it's actively coloring how we're experiencing situations in life. So I'll give you an example in my own life. One gremlin that I realized came up for me quite a bit is this message of, I don't belong. So when would this show up for me? I remember I was at a family camp, and I was I was invited to play volleyball with some other young adults, and I was like, okay, I don't usually play volleyball, so let me challenge myself and wake up early and play some sports with these young adults. Um, so yeah, get up early, 6 a.m. and go to the volleyball court, and we're playing some 3-on-3 volleyball. Um, and like as we're playing, I'm noticing like my two teammates, they're like, they're pretty good. I'm not that great. And um, I see, when they're celebrating, one thing I noticed was, we got a point. And I was like, oh, okay, got a point. And then like my two teammates, they gave each other a high five, right? And it's like, okay, they gave each other a high five. Like, what big deal, right? But to me, it was like, why didn't they give me a high five? It's like they're giving each other a high five. And it came up, that voice again of, oh man, I don't belong here. I don't belong in this team. I don't belong, playing volleyball, and I'm not this type of person. Um, and feeling left out, right? But you know, it wasn't about what happened over there, right? Like sometimes, I've had this thought like, oh, why don't they include me? Why aren't they including me in this, right? But it's not about what's going on there, that, oh, they didn't give me a high five. It was like I was distancing myself from them because I already at some point decided that I don't belong here. That I don't belong, on this team. I don't belong with these people. Um, so probably, if I looked at myself really objectively, I was probably being a little bit closed off. I was kind of being distant from them. And actually when I realized that, oh, I'm kind of making this up, then what I did was I whenever they were giving each other a high five, I just jumped in and I was like, yeah, okay, we did great. Yeah, let's do it. It was great. And it was like, oh yeah, like it was all in my head, and they were all happy, and like we were all happy, playing volleyball together. Um, but again, this is a message that has showed up in my life many times. Show up at church, and seeing the brothers and sisters, and they're talking to each other, and they're in a circle, and it's like, well, I can't go in that circle. I don't belong in that circle. I don't belong in that circle. And eventually, you find yourself not feeling like you belong in the community as a whole, right? So these gremlins, these messages uh, really impact and drive our behavior. Regardless of what's happening externally, it's really what's happening internally that's making the biggest difference in the actions and the choices that we make in our life. And the more aware that we become of these gremlins, the more we have power to respond, right? Like it's because I know that this I don't belong is a thing for me, that I was able to choose a different response, right? In that moment when they're giving each other high fives, right? Um, if I wasn't aware of this being a thing for me, then I probably would have just accepted it as my reality. That the reality is that I don't belong, versus, oh, I've got this gremlin that constantly tells me that I don't belong in these kind of situations. Um, so it's not that the gremlin necessarily even goes away when we become aware of them, but through awareness, it gives us the ability to respond, and to respond in a new way, and also to kind of transform that voice to something that's more productive and more supportive, and leading us to where we actually want to go in our life. So, uh, so yeah, I love this process. And what I'm going to do next is just kind of go through the process, what that looks like, the different questions. And as always, just keep in mind that these questions are just suggestions. There's no, this is the only question you can ask to get there. It's just something, try to make it your life a little bit easier and give you a place to start, and you can be more creative as you kind of learn the basics, right? So the beginning of this conversation starts with a core fear. So what is a fear that often comes up for you, right? And maybe it's a situation where you feel fearful, or you feel anxious, right? So for me, it was like, yeah, when I'm actually, for me, it's like often with peers, like when I'm dealing with people similar age or a little bit older, a little bit younger. That's when I start to feel like this kind of anxiety around belonging and things like that. So like that's the fear, and that's when it comes up for me. So that's what you want to ask. What is a fear that often comes up for you? Or, they might already be talking about a fear, right? In that case, it's just a great opportunity to jump into this this process. So from the fear, then you ask, what is your gremlin whispering to you in those times of fear and or anxiety? Okay, so here you want to really pinpoint the specific message that the gremlin is saying. All right, so it's like, yeah, I feel so much anxiety and fear when I get in these group situations, and I just feel like I want to get out of there. And say, okay, so in those moments, what do you think your gremlin is actually saying to you? What's the message? And usually the message is quite simple. It's not like, oh, I don't belong because of that experience that I had when I was 5 years old, and you never want to do that again. And it's not like that. It's just like, I don't belong. It's just like, I'm not good enough. It's like, um, I'm I'm unlovable or something like that. It's like very simple. And the reason for that is because these gremlins are usually messages that we've been repeating to us ourselves since we were like very young. So before we were super capable in uh, making beautiful language happen, our gremlin showed up with some very simple message um, that we've been repeating since we were very young. So the next question to ask is, what was a time recently when your gremlin came up? So I might say, yeah, like I just shared, this experience at camp, or yeah, I experienced this, a couple weeks ago at church when there was, people standing around after service. So just let them share, like when was a recent time, and then you want to go further, right? Because uh, you really the gremlin, as I mentioned, it started a long time ago. So asking when was the first time, when was the first time you think this gremlin showed up, this message of I don't belong or I'm not good enough? Um, Sometimes people struggle with, oh, was this really my first time? I don't know if it's my first time. So you could always just say, when was the earliest time that you remember this gremlin showing up? Um, Sometimes if they bring up something that's um like more recent, I'll ask again, like, do you think there might be a time before that when it actually showed up? Is there anything you can remember that was before that time? Because typically these gremlins have been around since childhood. So um typically there is like a childhood moment where the gremlin showed up, but it doesn't always have to be like super clear in their memory. Like could just be like, yeah, for me it was like for me it was pretty clear. It's like I showed up to my kindergarten class, and all the kids are talking about their favorite sports team, and I have no idea anything about football. I've never watched football in my life, and they're like, what's your favorite sports team? And I was like, I just, said what the last kid said. And I just felt like, I don't, okay, why are these kids, why don't I know this stuff? And for me, that was like where it showed up. Like, oh, yeah, I'm different. I don't belong here. I'm different from all the other kids. Um, so yeah, exploring when the first time. And then we go into naming your gremlin. So imagine your gremlin with you and give your gremlin a name. And why do we do that? It's because when we name things, that's kind of a way to take dominion over that thing, right? So just like when God said to first human beings, go and name everything in this garden. Oh, this is an apple. This is a pear. This is a dog. You know, to have dominion over that thing, right? And also, like, even if you have your own, you get a pet, right? You get a pet. When does it really become your pet? Is when you give it a name. Or when is your child? We give our children names, and we have so much, pride. We named this child, and it's our child, right? So that's how we take dominion over the gremlin, is to give it a name. So I think my gremlin's original name was like Butt Face. It's like, okay, Butt Face. This is my gremlin. just come up with anything, you know, it's doesn't have to be special. Um, and then the next step is, what truth would you like to share with your younger self? So sometimes I ask people to close their eyes at this point and kind of get into more like meditative state. I ask them, you know, imagine that you are with your younger self and you are this older, wiser you that you are now. What is some truth that you would want to share to your younger self in that moment? You know, in that moment where you felt like you didn't belong. Says, oh well, I want this younger self to know that they are, you know, God's child, and that they always belong in this, you know, this world, because God loves them and there's always a place for them. Um, Whatever that might be, right? You're just kind of conversing and sharing with your younger self the new kind of this wiser truth. And then the next step is to acknowledge your gremlin's help. So this is um, important, because actually the gremlin is not there to, you know, cause us pain or to destroy our lives or whatever, but actually the gremlin is a kind of defense mechanism. It's trying to defend us or protect us from something, right? Um, so like for me, it was like, yeah, my gremlin was obviously trying to protect me from feeling that painful sense of rejection, right? Like if I already decided I don't belong here, then nobody can reject me. If I don't put myself in the group, I can never get kicked out. I can never be told that I don't belong here, right? So you're appreciating the gremlin for what it's been trying to do, so that you can kind of come to that place of gratitude and reconciliation, where it's no longer like that level 2 energy of defiance of, you know, this gremlin it's been, you know, causing so much trouble in my life, but it's more understanding, oh, you know, this gremlin was actually trying to be there for me. It's not something that's there to bring me harm, but it's actually supposed to originally be there to support me, which goes to the next part, which is creating a new support cheer. So what would you like your gremlin to tell you in times of fear and anxiety instead? Um, so yeah, it might be like, um, you know, you are put on this earth for a special reason to help other people uh, feel their value, or you know, you are the one who you know, can bring so much comfort to those who are lonely or whatever. Um, like reminding you of something that is more empowering and valuable, that will actually kind of bring you closer towards being the person that you want to be and responding in the way that you want to respond to these difficult situations. Um, and then the final step is giving your gremlin a new name. So it's this is um, kind of an opportunity to restore your gremlin. Like if you gave it a name like I did, like Buttface, maybe you don't want to keep that name for the gremlin that's supposed to be supporting you from here on out, right? So I gave my gremlin a new name of Peter. It's just the name that came to me at that time. Um, and then just to, you know, love your gremlin, appreciate your gremlin. Thank you so much, Peter, for from here on out, for supporting me, and really want to ask you for your support moving forward. Um, so yeah, I'll just have the client kind of say a few words of appreciation and love to the gremlin. Um, and that's the process. So yeah, it's a very powerful process to go through for somebody. It can be very transformational, very revealing, if you allow people to walk through the different steps. Um, just, you know, just one thing to keep in mind is that, you know, the gremlin is, it's not going to necessarily always, you know, just like, oh, I'm never going to think that I don't belong evermore in my entire life. You know, that voice will still come back sometimes. And, but now that you're aware, again, you're able to have that conversation, and you're able to say, oh yeah, Peter, thanks for sharing. Just remember, you know, I'd like you to tell me that, you know, I'm an amazing person, or whatever it might be, right? Um, and to be able to kind of utilize this tool on your own. Um, okay, so I know that was quite a bit, but here are all of those questions step by step. So again, you might want to take a picture of this so that you can utilize it while you practice with your partner. Um, and yeah, as always, just remember this is not a script. And if you want to, be a little bit, you know, creative, use your intuition while you practice, that's totally fine. But definitely want to try to practice going through each step and exploring each step as much as you can in the time frame that you have. Um, so yeah, before we get into practice, as usual, I'll open it up to Nyakimi if you'd like to add any additional insights.
Yes, thank you, Justin. Again, amazing job. Thanks for going through that. Love the imagery to enhance the experience there. Couple thoughts. Uh, this process is probably the deepest kind of transformational moment for the in the coaching experience because in the general coaching process we're more forward looking, clarify a direction or things that you want more in your life and you're kind of moving forward. This is the one space where we go back and it's more restorational and we go deep in a relatively short period of time. Um, a little bit of therapy is coming up here, but we're going really deep to the core message, the core experience, but quickly from there, transforming the core so that the way that we look at life is different. So it's a very powerful tool. Now, sometimes takes longer than you it takes a little while to get people to come up with the phrase, and it's okay. One client I remember I had to do 2 sessions before we can kind of complete this particular exercise. But it's a really powerful tool, so I want to encourage people to get familiar with this and explore that. Now, a couple of thoughts in the process that came up was when you're asking the gremlin kind of like guiding your child, guiding your younger self. If the client has children, you can say like, imagine, your daughter or your son, is your 6-year-old son is coming up to you and saying that this is how they feel. How would you guide them? It's really interesting. The way that we talk to ourselves and the way that we would treat others is always very different. We tend to be very mean to ourselves, hear the things that my wife says out loud. It's like you would never say that to someone else, but we tend to be very hard on ourselves. But if you put yourself objectively and say, okay, your young 6-year-old child, this happened and they feel like they don't belong, how would you guide your your inner child almost? And then it's amazing what shows up. I mean, naturally, your instinct is to protect and guide, and no, you are loved, or some kind of messaging comes up, and that's very therapeutic. Even them, out of their own words, talking to their own like child self, their inner child. Now that's usually the level that we stop at. Even in my training in IPEC, it was more like you can only acknowledge and identify the gremlin. Um, Giving the gremlin a new name is very new. I mean, that's something we created. Justin and I, we created this because we felt we know principle, even Satan needs to be restored. So how can we, use the opportunity mind and say, how can we change this gremlin into someone that can help you? And that's where we came up with the additional steps. And this is really revolutionary because we're now changing the voice that's been holding you down and holding you back. We're actually making that voice into your teammate. It's brilliant, actually. Every time I think about it, we're literally restoring Satan, your own inner demon, and basically appreciating it for the motive. The motivation why that voice came was to kind of protect you from pain, and it served you in that moment temporarily, but it's not serving you today. And so it's kind of like you're guiding that inner voice that what ended up becoming like a gremlin or a demon. You're guiding it with the same kind of compassion that you would your inner child and saying, okay, thank you for supporting me back there. Let's just adjust it. I'm 25 years older now, and I'd appreciate if you can adjust it to be more empowering like this. And then now you're liberating the gremlin too. You're giving it a role. They're now your teammate. And every time that gremlin comes up, initially your gremlin will forget. So they'll send you the same message. You don't belong. But then you just patiently say, no, remember, I told you that the newt here is God loves you, or whatever, phrase that you came up with. And then it's amazing because you're now changing that inner negative voice into a supportive voice for you. So this one exercise is super duper powerful if people can really grasp it. So just wanted to reiterate that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, so let's go into our breakouts and oh, okay, that's fine. Okay, got it. Yeah, thanks, Kendra. Okay, so yeah, we'll go into our breakouts and I'll make sure that your partner has someone. Okay, that should be good. All right, so we'll have 30 minutes to practice, get as far as you can in 15 minutes for one way, and then you want to switch, and we'll come back and have some time for Q&A. Okay. Oh, there's some people. Mm. Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay. Go there. Sylvan, are you able to join?
Sorry, yeah, no, because I was using both my computer now, because anyway, can you just put me in, now I'm on my phone. Sorry, I switched.
Ah, okay. Um, you have a room assigned to you, so you should be able to join it.
Okay, how does it work? Because
Let
can
me
you
try.
just put, yes, please.
Okay, one sec. Hi, Chantal Marie. One second, I'm putting your partner in there. Okay, I think we're okay.